why is love seen as like, man, we've been through so much together, man. Like, she really held me down at the darkest moments. Like, why do men see that as love?
Oh, I think it's brainwashing, personally. But that's just me. Welcome back to our fellow multifaceted girlies. I'm Blake.
And I'm Ashlyn, and you're watching another episode of the Suburban Black Girl Podcast. So today we're talking about, should Black women stop dating men who grew up on survival until they go to therapy?
I think something that's becoming a non-negotiable for me is not necessarily therapy, but somebody who is self-aware, aware of their trauma, is acknowledging it, dealing with it, working on regulating themselves emotionally and all of their triggers and their traumas. And I think that level of self-awareness often comes as a result of therapy. So I think it would definitely be a very, very nice to have.
Right, yes.
Moving forward in my dating life and my singleness. I don't know if it would be a requirement, but it definitely would be a question that I would ask for sure.
Yeah.
I don't know on the first date, but definitely like an upfront question, because I just think the reality of, number one, dating in the Black community, period. And it's not just Black men, Black women. We all have a unique level of trauma that comes with growing up and being Black in this country. But I just think the amount of people not doing the work is the majority of the population, and the amount of us that are doing the work on ourselves and trying to fix those deep-rooted issues or trauma is few and far between. And so I would say it for sure is a requirement for me dating moving forward, that at the very least you are doing that work in some capacity, whether it is in therapy or, I don't know, if you're part of a church group or you have a mentor that is older and wiser than you, something to try and, heal those things, because we're not responsible for the things that happen to us, especially as children, but you are responsible as an adult for your own healing and not going on to trigger and traumatize more people because you're not working on yourself.
Absolutely. I think I've dealt with enough men that had never gone to therapy. They were like, I don't need therapy. Why would I go to that? Like, because, we talked about before how in the Black community, therapy is seen as like this mental institution, as in like, oh, you must be crazy if you're going to go see a therapist. It's like, no, there's everyday people that are in therapy heavily and they're perfectly fine. You know what I mean? Like, we always say it's kind of like a self-check-in, a tune-up, becoming better, the best version of yourself. I definitely agree with you on that. I think it's really hard to date a man that, whether you go to therapy or not, but it's like, what are you doing to become a better person? And, I've shared it with you before. I remember dating a guy where it's like, we had dated on and off for some years and he had finally went to therapy, but then I felt like he tried to... he literally Uno reversed me.
He weaponized the therapy language against you, yeah.
And he kept telling me after that, like, you need to go to therapy. You need to go to therapy. Well, my therapist told me this. I'm like, no, let me sit down and talk to your therapist with you. Bye. Because it literally made him worse. But you know what? So I'm like, I don't know. I think some men, they can go to therapy and it's like, maybe you work on your own personal things, that maybe the childhood trauma you went through. But I don't think he really got to that point of his therapist where, they were talking about like, okay, well, how are your relationships now as an adult with women, coworkers, etc. Like, I felt like he was just dealing with that childhood trauma. But yeah, I'm definitely excited to talk more into this.
Yeah, I think it's about self-awareness and accountability. And that can often come from therapy, but some people will leave you more traumatized than you already were after dating them.
No, literally. Literally.
I don't blame the women that are done dating for a while. I get it.
Sometimes you glow better when you're single, and that's perfectly fine. Mm-hmm. And I commend women that literally are just like, you know what? I can do battle by myself.
Yeah.
And why should they be shunned for that? Where it's like, we literally have the choice.
I don't know. I was just talking about this with a family member too this past week. And, we were just talking about like Black love, and transparently, it was like one of my male cousins, and we were talking about how it was nice for him to see like Black men speak about like their emotions and growth and things like that. And it was in the context of a conversation around Black love, a Black man and a Black woman dating, and the Black woman really helped him become a man, and da 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 da. And I was like, to me, on the surface level, that's very beautiful. But deep down, I'm like, I have no interest in that. Like, hate to say it, but I'm not saying that I don't want to be a partner and help each other grow, but I don't have interest in character building. I don't have interest in teaching somebody how to regulate their emotions. Like, to me, I feel like that whole narrative around Black love and a woman helping a man become a man ends up looking like mothering and feeling like mothering, and I have no interest in that.
Yeah. No, I think that's very real because whether people want to admit it or not, a lot of women are literally the mother to their husbands. And I mean, we definitely see it in the older generations of our family members. I know I do for sure. And it's like, yeah, no. Like, I don't mind obviously helping out, but it's like, I'm not your mom.
Right.
You know what I mean? And it's like, but I think that's just a part of like us as Black women. We are natural nurturers. And I feel like men just gravitate towards that, right?
Yeah. And I feel like the majority of people hearing me say what I just said, amongst probably what I'll continue to say in this conversation, it's like, oh, they don't make them like they used to, or oh, she's not wifey material. I'm not, to the majority of y'all, and I'm fine with that. I'm not interested in doing that level of emotional labor. It literally raises your cortisol and causes health issues. Like, fight me. But it does. And I'm not interested in it.
Rightfully so, like, absolutely. Because it's like the things that some men expect us to do for love is insane.
Yeah.
Like, for love, it's the battlefield. Like, it's the trenches. It's hell.
Yeah.
Sometimes. It can be hell.
Yeah.
And no.
And I think it absolutely probably can and should be challenging, but not the trenches. So I think that's glamorized way too much, especially in our community.
Why is love seen as like, man, we've been through so much together, man. Like, she really held me down at the darkest moments. Like, why do men see that as love?
Oh, I think it's brainwashing, personally. But that's just me. I think it's absolutely brainwashing to get people to lower their standards and feel like they have to put up with nonsense in order to be chosen and in order to be a wife or in order to be in a relationship. I don't want to say puts the fault or the responsibility on the woman, but it's more so like it removes accountability from the man in his poor behavior or his lack of growth and working on himself and maturity, and puts it on the woman for, you need to reach a certain threshold of what you're willing to put up with, and then you can get what you deserve.
Yeah.
You know?
That's fair.
And I don't like that.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's totally fair.
I think a lot of things that are normalized remove accountability from men and put it onto women. And I feel like it starts at such a young age for us. Like, for example, did you ever have like the 2-finger rule for tank tops in elementary school or high school? Or like the fingertip rule? Yeah.
My stuff was always shorter.
Exactly. And I feel like it's an example of it removes the accountability from the boys, because it was always, oh, well, you know, if you wear that, then it's going to distract the boys. Like, why are we not teaching them self-control?
Right. That's true.
Versus having to police what women wear, young girls at the time wear. Or even in adulthood, it's like when a man will not commit to you or whatever the case may be, and he like goes on to marry someone else or whatever, it's always like, well, you just weren't the one. I don't know. Like, you know what I'm saying? I hate that because it then puts the fault on the woman.
Right, of course. Because if it doesn't work out with you, then you're looking at yourself in the mirrors of like, oh my God, am I not good enough? Am I not pretty enough? Am I not skinny enough? Etc. Like, the list goes on and on. You do start to compare. When it's like, that was just never supposed to be your person in the first place, right?
Yeah. So I think the whole idea of like struggle love and all that being glamorized is just removing the need for improvement or accountability on their end and putting it back on us. Like, no, you just need to have patience.
How do you feel like survival mode shows up in dating and emotional intimacy?
I feel like it removes all emotional intimacy, personally. Like, I feel like, from my experience, dating somebody who operated in survival mode removed all of the romance, I feel like, out of the relationship, and made the relationship feel like work, or yeah, almost made certain aspects of it feel like a chore. It gets away from I have to do this or they're going to be upset versus I'm doing this out of love and the kindness of my heart, which makes it feel like work.
Yeah.
And to me, that's what removes all of the emotional intimacy.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point because when I think of like my previous dating experience with a man that I definitely felt like, he grew up in survival mode. And even when we were together, like I could see that's why when we first kind of started this podcast, we had the topic of discussion of were you raised on love or survival? Because I was raised on love and he was raised on survival. And I saw how much we butt heads and clash because we just came from two different modes of upbringings, right? But just being in that, situation with him, I felt like when it came to the survival mode and, how he treated me in dating and the emotional intimacy, there was definitely a huge wall. Like it was more than a wall. It was probably like a brick wall. And then it was a bunch of like deflecting and a bunch of like, pointing the finger back at me all the time and making me feel as though like it's always my fault. Like I'm always the problem. There was no accountability, no reassurance. And even when it came down to just like the intimacy part, it wasn't like we were, how can I put it? Now it makes me sad. We're looking back on some of my dating experiences. Sometimes I feel like I was in situations with men like that where intimacy was only sexual. But when you're in an actual healthy relationship or you're dealing with a man that is loving you properly, correctly, you realize that true intimacy is not sexual. Like it simply is embracing you in different ways. Maybe that's simply just laying up under each other. It could be just the little things he does to put a smile on your face or when he knows you're down. But me just kind of realizing like, wow, intimacy is more than just sex. Because men like that grew up in survival mode, to me, they always made me feel like intimacy is just sex and nothing more than that. And that's all you're going to get in a man sometime that was raised on survival. It's just sex.
Yeah. And then the unfortunate flip side of that is for most women, it's not comfortable to be intimate unless you have that emotional connection or that level of emotional safety. And with that person being more in survival mode or being avoidant, then you don't have that emotional connection, which then does not really make you want to be intimate.
Right.
But to them, that's what they care about. And that's like the direct clash.
Literally, because it could be like one of those situations where you're just chilling and then all of a sudden it's like, why are you on top of me? Like, it's like, how did we get here? And it's so weird, but it's like, okay, like a spark goes off in the head, like, okay, yeah, I want it right now. It's like, but like, you're not even stimulated.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, it starts, at least for me, I feel like, I hate to use the word foreplay, but like, it starts throughout the day, like being in tune with you emotionally, or like doing something nice for you or doing an act of service. Like it all starts there. And when, there's friction throughout the day or you're not connecting emotionally, and then all of a sudden, someone wants to get on top of you, it's like, I'm good.
No, literally.
That's definitely been an issue for me in like past relationships, because it's like, for me, if I'm not feeling emotionally safe or emotionally connected or heard, I personally have no interest in being intimate physically. And then I think where that creates the clash and the back and forth then is the immature or selfish men that I've dated. It's like, well, why would I want to do X, Y, and Z for you? And I'm sexually frustrated or whatever. Then it's just like a circular reference at that point.
Right.
Because it's like, okay, well, you're not bringing any sort of safety back to the relationship for me. And then you're not doing that because you feel like you're sexually frustrated. Well, nobody's going to want to have sex with you if you're not doing that. So, and then it's just an endless circle that gets nowhere.
Yeah.
And so that's definitely a awkward and uncomfortable and honestly, it kind of reaches a point of no return in the relationship for me.
Yeah.
Because the more and more you go on not trying to fix it because you're sexually frustrated, then it just builds resentment for me personally. And that's the start of the end of the relationship. I'm not gonna lie.
As far as women, like, we don't really need live life. Like, no.
Some women do. I feel like most are not like that.
Mm.
But I feel like some women are just as like sexual as men in that way.
I could see that.
I'm personally not, but yeah. To me, I don't feel like I need to touch you or you need to touch me if we're not connecting like mentally and emotionally. But that's just me.
Yeah, it has to be more for me.
Yeah. What patterns do you think emerge when someone hasn't processed their trauma but wants partnership?
The patterns that you start to see is maybe it's them shutting down. When you guys are faced with a situation or going through something, they just completely shut you down. And you can't even really get your point across with maybe them getting a little irate, upset, not hearing your perspective, and them shutting you down to the point where you just literally walk away and your feelings are hurt. It turns into that thing where it just kind of like gets swept under the rug and tomorrow's a new day and they're like, hey, babe, how are you? You want to go like grab some brunch? And it's like, no, like what happened to how you treated me and talked to me yesterday? Like you literally just swept that under the rug. And that's one of the things I used to go through a lot where it's like, that's actually not healthy. And a lot of times, you try to forgive and move on. I can't even say forget, but you try to move on and it's kind of just like wounds, right? And it's really a band-aid situation. So for me, I would say it's the shutdown. I think that's the main thing for me that I can think of right now on the top of my head.
Yeah. And to your point with words, I feel like people that grew up more in survival or a toxic environment where speaking to each other in very demeaning ways was a little bit more normalized. At least that's what I've experienced in dating is to them, maybe coming way out of pocket or talking out the side of their mouth briefly is not a big deal because that's what they grew up with. But for me, it's like, I'm going to remember that you spoke to me like that. And as much as I would like to forgive or try to forgive, your body always remembers.
Yeah.
And your nervous system always remembers. And that's kind of what I was alluding to earlier, where it's like the beginning of the end of the relationship for me also, because you cannot take words back. And as much as I will maybe try to understand that it was the heat of the moment or you didn't mean what you said, my body remembers.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah. But I think as far as patterns, it's a lot of emotional stability, a lot of reactiveness, a lot of emotional immaturity, a lack of emotional regulation on their part. But something else is like, it's a lot of tough exteriors, but also very sensitive, actually, on the inside. And in a past relationship, it's looked like an inability to hold their own emotions. And not only am I holding my own emotions and my own triggers and also dealing with however they've hurt me, then I have to hold their emotions for them.
Yeah.
And I also think when you date someone like that and maybe they're not used to getting close to people, and maybe this is one of the first or only times that they've allowed themselves to get close to somebody and really like them or love them and be vulnerable, that's very uncomfortable for that person. And that then creates another layer of emotional responsibility that falls on you because then they're extremely sensitive. And that's a pattern that causes a lot of stress on the other person.
Because I feel like it's like flipping a coin. You just don't know what you're going to do to tick them off. You don't know what it's going to set them off. You don't know what person you're going to get that day or that time. And I feel like a lot of times when I also think of that, like people that really haven't processed their trauma, they're kind of moody.
Definitely.
Like, are you okay? That's what I really think of. I'm like, I've dealt with a lot of moody men. But it's true. It's like you're not able to regulate your emotions. So you're just all over the place. And you're not really a genuine happy person. We were saying all the time, but I'm so serious. Like people are out here fighting demons.
And it makes you hypervigilant.
Yeah.
Because then you, to your point about them being moody, it makes you hypervigilant from the perspective that you begin monitoring that person's body language, their tone. Like the second that it changes, you're like, oh boy, like,
yeah,
are they going to fly off the handle? Are they going to storm out? What are they going to, I don't know, say something out the side of their mouth again? And over time, being hypervigilant like that, again, it affects your nervous system. And then you start living with high cortisol, and it becomes a very unhealthy way to live. And so for me, being in a relationship like that in the past, going back to the question of the episode and therapy, like it has become like a non-negotiable for me in past relationships, because it's like, I can't hold this stuff for you anymore. I'm not a professional and I'm not getting paid to do this.
Yeah.
So please find a professional and speak to them.
Yeah.
About how you can regulate yourself, because I can't do it for you anymore.
You have to remind yourself as a woman, like, you are no one's baggage claim.
Period.
I don't know, it just came to mind because it's true. It's like, as women, men throw so much of their trauma on us, like they trauma dump, and you have to remind yourself, like, there's only so much that you can take. Because it's like, we know how baggage claims literally are. It's just piling up to the point you're literally so heavy and you're carrying all the weight, and they're just like walking around smiling because, I mean, you're carrying all the dead weight.
Yep, I've definitely experienced that, where it's like, oh yeah, no, I feel good. And it's like, I'm glad you feel good because I'm now exhausted.
Exactly.
And that's another thing too about people that just dump. It's like, you can have a conversation and they're like, oh, well, I feel better. And it's like, really? Because now I'm good and I actually need some space for 2 days.
Right.
Like, because that was a lot. That's what I was kind of saying earlier, is just like people that grow up like having a knockdown brawl and then acting like nothing's happened a second later. It's like, I don't operate like that.
No.
At all.
Like, everything's okay. Why are Black women often expected to be patient, understanding, or ride it out?
I mean, I feel like we kind of touched on this earlier, but like I said, I feel like it's a campaign to get women to... It's a conspiracy theory to get women to settle. And I don't know. I just feel like living like that, it ultimately can make you feel very masculine, very hard, bitter, angry yourself. And I'm not interested in doing that. I don't want to struggle.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in a struggle love. Like, being a partner with somebody obviously has its own challenges. You're two different people at the end of the day. You have to learn that person. They have to learn you. Regardless, everybody has some form of baggage or triggers, and learning that and being sensitive or understanding to that other like, that's all fine. But there's a difference between being empathetic and supportive and understanding certain things and having to completely carry all of the emotional weight in a situation, or quite frankly, putting up with disrespect until that person decides to grow and evolve and work on themselves. That to me is like struggle love, and I'm not interested in that.
When I always think about, we think of like, you know, the reasons why as Black women we're supposed to be seen as like, oh, why aren't you patient or riding it out with a man? It's because, you know, a lot of the previous generations in our families did that. And so Black men think Black women are supposed to do the same as their aunties and grandmothers and great grandmothers, etc., did for their men. But like we talk about sometimes, like, we are genuinely modern women. Like, this is not back in the day. Like, absolutely not. And things are different now. A lot has changed. And to be honest with you, I don't think a lot of men are doing a lot of the things that the men were doing back in that day. Some do, but I mean, it's kind of hard to find them now. It really is genuinely hard to find that. And so I think a lot of it comes from just a lot of us seeing how women have to treat men and what they will put up with. So they just think like that's okay. And it's like, it never was okay.
Yeah.
It's just a lot of them did it for their children, honestly, right? To keep a roof over their head, food on the table, etc. But I'm just grateful that it's easier for a lot of us to be like, no, I generally choose happiness over stability, comfort, etc.
We talked about this a couple episodes ago, but for some people, the desire for companionship is stronger than their love for themselves. I think for some people it comes from low self-esteem, but I also think it comes from this idea that, no, you just need to struggle a little bit to be worthy of love or to find a good partner. And it's like, no thanks. Because, you know, everybody wants companionship at the end of the day. Myself included. So I'm not sitting here saying I'm not doing X, Y, and Z, not because I don't want to be in a relationship eventually or, you know, find a compatible partner. I just don't want to have to put up with disrespect or unnecessary levels of stress or toxicity to say that I'm in a relationship.
Right.
Do you think that asking for therapy is a boundary or unrealistic?
I think asking someone to go to therapy, if that's a non-negotiable for you, then that's a non-negotiable. That man must go to therapy.
Right.
I don't think it's an unrealistic expectation because men have expectations that they want in a woman, so why can't I do the same?
Sure.
If that's an expectation that I have of you as a man, then so be it. And if that's not an expectation that you can meet, then we probably aren't compatible. I never want to force anyone to do anything, but I definitely need to make sure, like, if I'm dealing with someone, like, you need to at least be open to it.
Mhm.
If you completely shut it down, then to me, that's a problem because no one is out here just perfect and whole to where they can't use a little bit of help
Mhm.
or a little bit of just making sure things are okay.
Yeah.
But I don't think it's unrealistic or anything like that. What do you think?
I think it's both. I think it can be a boundary for one person and it can be unrealistic for the person they're dating. And if that's the case, then it's just not going to work out. But, for some people, they are dead set, like, no, I'm not doing it.
Yeah.
And it's unrealistic for them. And that's fine. But as a person that's going to have boundaries and set them, you have to be willing to stand on them.
Right.
And that means potentially losing somebody if they genuinely feel like it's unrealistic for them to go to therapy. But I don't think it's a crazy boundary to have.
Right.
For me personally, if I meet somebody, would it be like a non-negotiable to date them? No. But if it gets to a point where it's like you're speaking Chinese and that other person is speaking English and you just cannot connect at all, but you both have the desire to want to work it out, then yeah, I think therapy should absolutely be an option, whether together or individually, whatever that looks like, or both probably is best. But I think in this day and age, it's not crazy because everybody is just walking around completely unhealed with so much baggage. And I don't think it's fair that your partner has to carry so much of that.
And that's the thing, like, so many people are carrying around someone else's baggage and it's like, it's hard.
As someone who wants to be a good partner and work with that person and is also very understanding, what do you think is the line between being understanding and being empathetic and then potentially just carrying all of the emotional weight?
I was thinking something similar to that too. I feel like, we all have our different levels of, okay, I've had enough. Like, that's it. And I think you have to figure out, where do you draw the line? Where do you feel like it's just too much to carry to where it's affecting your day? It's affecting your mood. It's affecting your routine, etc. I think when it starts affecting you from being like your greatest self and reaching your ultimate potential, then I think that's when you need to really sit down and say, is this relationship really serving me? Is this worth fighting through and figuring out? Because no man is perfect, right? I think any man that we deal with, and just like for us women, any woman or man you deal with, it's going to be sacrifice and it's going to take time. And a lot of things you realize when you're dating, there has to be some type of compromise to an extent, just because we're all raised differently and we see things differently. But I think it's important that, you find some way to compromise with someone. And I feel like if someone's not willing to compromise with you, then it makes it really hard to kind of stick it out. Mm-hmm. And also for me, I think personally speaking on my past, it's easier for me to, see it through and try my best to work it out as long as they see the flaws in me and are just as patient as I am with them as they are with me. Because I've been in situations where a man was not patient with me, gave me hell, but wanted all the patience and all the time and all the love for me. And it's like,
yeah,
when the shoe was on the other foot, he had me thinking I need to be in a psych ward.
Yeah, I feel that a little bit too much because, yeah, they want all the patience and all the grace. And I've definitely experienced not even doing something wrong, but maybe just not doing it in the way that they wanted me to do it. And it's like all hell breaks loose. And honestly, on my side, that also builds resentment because it's like, how do I continuously have patience for you in things that I probably should have blacked on you for, but I move one toe out of line and you're crying, throwing up. Not literally, but you know what I mean?
Right.
It's just that has built resentment for me in past relationships because it's the things that I'm being patient with you for, you would never be, actually you would be out the door. And that's why I said my motto this year is, thinking like a man in that way. because the way they will put themselves first and be like, yeah, I'm not dealing with this. Same.
Yeah.
Now in 2026. But I think when it comes to like, what is the line between being empathetic and carrying all of the emotional labor, you have to be very careful, especially if you are a very understanding person, a soft, empathetic person. That can quickly get you down the rabbit hole of just losing yourself. On the flip side, I think if you are somebody like that, that might be a reason you need to be in therapy, because you have to learn how to set more boundaries or put yourself first in that way, because that is a very easy way to be taken advantage of. When somebody continuously does something to hurt you over and over again, and you can just intellectualize it or understand why they did it a little bit too much. And it's like, it doesn't matter why.
Yeah.
It matters how it made you feel. It matters how it disrespected you. And that's it. Empathy can turn into a lack of boundaries and increase suffering for you very quickly if you're not careful.
To just change the conversation a little bit, because these are conversations that I have with some friends.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that some of the reason why men are the way they are is because of their mothers?
Yeah. In my dating experience, I feel like I have to keep saying that because
Right.
conversations like this, put a disclaimer across the screen, please. We are speaking from our lived experiences.
Thank you.
That is it.
Thank you.
Actually, maybe this needs to go at the start of the episode.
Please.
Disclaimer. Flash it. We are speaking from our own past dating experiences, our own lived experiences. These are not generalizations.
Literally.
Sheesh. Okay, because common sense is not common. Critical thinking is not common. From my experience, the most narcissistic people I have dated, it has started with their mother, and their mother not holding them accountable.
Yep.
It's like the mama's boy syndrome.
Mm-hmm.
The mother never telling them when they're dead ass wrong. It would be like, oh, my mom knows how I am. And one relationship, past relationship in particular, it was like a single mother situation. The mother didn't hold them accountable, and they just went on to like be a terror.
Yep.
And extremely narcissistic. The mothers that baby their sons, they go on to terrorize women, because not teaching accountability at a young age, then they just, grow on to be terrible adults.
And it took me until a few years ago to realize a lot of these men, I do blame their mothers. And then the more when I started to date men and I started to ask more questions about their mothers and that dynamic, and, you know, how was the upbringing between your mother and your father, you know, et cetera, things like that. And you really start to put the puzzle pieces together.
Yep. I always think of that Summer Walker song where it's like, she starts up, she's like, I want to start with your mama. She should have whooped your ass.
Yes. Please.
I forget what song that is.
I know. Yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
But yeah, felt that, because one day when I don't have a corporate job, I will tell other stories that it'll be whatever if it's on the internet.
Yeah.
But yeah, seeing how a grown man can be babied by his mother, it's scary.
Yeah, because a lot of these mothers treat their sons as if it's like their man. It's like there are no boundaries. Like the lines are blurred. You can't tell them nothing about their son.
Yeah, you're always going to be the problem.
Mm-hmm.
When it's like, have you seen what your son does?
No, seriously.
Like, why have you not? I swear, the day that I'm ever a boy, I actually appreciate seeing content online of like these boy moms that are like showing them how to be gentlemen.
Yes, me too.
And stuff, because it's like, I'm not gonna lie, if I have a son and he ever like cheats on his girlfriend, I'm telling her.
No, for what, girl? No.
Like, no.
For real.
There'll be none of that. I remember, I don't know why I was thinking about this girl. I worked with her so long ago, but she was in her early 20s, and her boyfriend like did this elaborate proposal, like took her on a scavenger hunt all day. So got her hair done, got her nails done, got her a nice dress. Then at the end, he proposed. All her their friends and family were there, like, you know, out of a movie. And this is before like social media was like, proposals and all was a huge thing, you know? So like, it really wasn't even for social media like that. And then literally, I want to say not even a year into their marriage, she found out he was cheating, like went to his mom, and the mom was like, oh, honey, like, don't worry about it. Like, looked at
Yep.
her like she was crazy for being upset.
Right.
And I think I saw on LinkedIn, she had a new last name. So I think she must have divorced him, obviously, and remarried. But yeah, it's
Mm.
just like his whole family like made her the enemy
Yep.
because she was upset that he cheated. And it's just like, I'll be damned.
It's interesting how many women, especially like, the older generations, will sweep stuff like that under the rug when it comes to a man. They're like, oh, especially if they're living a lavish life, it's like, oh, darling.
I think it's way more normalized than my naive soul realized. But I feel like the older I'm getting, it's like, no, these women are getting cheated on and they're just staying quiet about it.
Yes. Yes. Like, even, we can have talks with different friends and family members. And now that we're older, you're realizing like a lot of people, cheat on their significant other and their parents end up staying together or whatever it may be. And it's like, whoa.
Yeah.
It's really hard for me to believe that there are a lot of people out there that just, I hate to say it, that don't cheat.
And that's a realization I've been thinking about lately is like, not that I'm gloom and doom about ever being in a relationship again, but I've accepted that I'll probably be single for a while because it's just like, I'm not willing to put up with disrespect, somebody not being self-aware, somebody not regulating themselves, somebody cheating. You see more and more women just choosing to be single because the more work you put in on yourself, the less compatible you are going to be with the majority of the population who isn't doing that work
Yeah.
on themselves. And so, I sit here and it's not even like I hate all men. I think they're all, it's like, no. I feel like my frontal lobe is developing from the perspective that it's not all men or all women, but it is the majority. Like,
No, for real.
unfortunately. And it actually makes me very sad, but it's just like, no, people really are out here getting cheated on and they don't know it, or they're turning a blind eye and they're just being quiet about it because it's embarrassing. I get it because being alone can be hard.
Right.
And being with somebody for a long time and then feeling like it failed, I can see maybe why people just try and work it out and stick it out and just be quiet about it. But like I said, for me, as much as I've ever tried to forgive or forget or move forward, like my body remembers.
That's so real. It's so real because it's true. Like, your body will literally start to like tremble inside.
Yeah. Or it's like as much as you want to feel safe with that person, it's like,
It's not giving Velcro.
yeah, you're always gonna have that little thought in the back of your head. That just creates more issues for me.
Do you feel like therapy is the only path to being healed?
I don't know. I think it's a path. And if it's not like one-on-one therapy, is there different versions, like a support group? If you're religious, having a relationship with a pastor or having a mentor. Do I think that the majority of us should just be left to our own devices to try and heal? No. I think there has to be some sort of collaboration, whatever that looks like. If it's a community, if it's a mentorship, if it's a therapist, we don't know all the answers.
Right.
And I feel like a lot of times the people that don't want to go to therapy, not looking down on anyone who doesn't want to go to therapy, but you have to be willing to hear something from somebody that you feel like you can trust. That to me is the common denominator. You have to be open to hearing about yourself from somebody.
Yeah.
And looking in the mirror in that way.
It's important if like you're not maybe open to therapy or if it's not your thing, then definitely confiding in someone that is close to you. And it could be not a family member, right? I know for sure, like with my father, he didn't have the greatest upbringing, but he had godparents. And that kind of changed his life and his perspective on life because, he kind of was able to see a different life, a different world through their lens to where they kind of turned him, into a man and helped him grow up. And so I think that's important, right? To still, even if therapy's not your thing, you see something where you're like, okay, this looks probably more like it should be or how it's supposed to go. That can be your voice of reason and help you grow and stuff if like therapy is really not your thing. It's definitely important to have a different, like just being around different groups of people that are outside of just like your own four walls.
Yeah. Seek counsel wiser than you.
Yes.
I don't think that we can do it on our own. And the most stubborn people that think that they can, just their growth is stunted, ultimately.
Yeah. Today's mantra moment is really short and sweet. Love should not require you to heal someone else.
Exactly.
Short and sweet.
Yes. I think Black women should be allowed to choose someone who is actively doing the same work that they are.
Yes.
And not be guilted for it. And I think growing up in survival or being in survival mode can absolutely explain behavior, but now what? What are you doing about it?
Yep.
You know, so I think talk can be cheap in that way, and it's okay to want to go off of the work that somebody's doing. So, what are we talking about next week? Oh, another shaking the table moment. Do women owe men feminine energy if the man isn't providing masculine leadership? Feels like a part 2.
It does. Ooh, I like that.
Okay, please don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, follow us on all platforms at Suburban Black Girl Pod. Email us at suburbanblackgirlpod@gmail.com. If you are watching on Apple or Spotify, please give us a lovely star rating, and we will see you next week.
Bye, guys.